I think that it's really disappointing to see a political party attack independent media. I'd also like to note that Mr. Poilievre believes he can attack the CBC without also attacking Radio-Canada. That's false. We can't have confidence in the Conservatives when they regularly attack the culture, identity, and quality independent journalism that is local. I think it also illustrates quite a lot just how much the Conservative Party has chosen to attack an important institution for many Canadians. And it has chosen to do so for me, this illustrates a misalignment of values, a lack of understanding of just how proud Canadians are of our institutions. And we even asked millions from the U.S. to come and help us with our institutions.
They're choosing to constantly attack independent media organizations, journalists who are working hard to keep Canadians informed and support our democracies. CBC Radio-Canada serves right across the country, delivers local news and local content in many regions of the country that, yes, has been challenged over the past years, but the idea of adding to that challenges and laying on by attacking this Canadian institution, attacking the culture and local content that is so important to so many Canadians, really indicates the values and the approach that Mr. Poilievre is putting forward. And I think it is telling that in order to attack this institution that is important for many, many Canadians, he runs to American billionaires, the tech giants that they continue to defend in committee and in their approach on our legislation to make tech giants pay their fair share. Conservatives are always there to defend them. So when they're trying to attack a foundational Canadian institution, the fact that he has to run to American billionaires for support to attack Canadians says a lot about Mr. Poilievre and his values.
Strike in the public service. They announced that if there was no agreement by tomorrow night, there would be a general strike on Wednesday morning. And they're looking for wage increases. What do you have to say about that, given the potential serious disruptions to services? Well, first of all, we acknowledge that the rising cost of living has been difficult for many, many Canadians over the last few years. The pandemic was also extremely difficult. And it is the federal public service precisely that was there to deliver for small businesses and help Canadians get through the pandemic. But at the same time, we know that inflation is coming down. We are again seeing good growth in the economy despite the challenges in the global economy. But in that regard, we will continue, as we have been doing for many weeks, to work in good faith at the bargaining table. We hope to find a solution that will work for both the public service and for taxpayers. And once these challenges are addressed for years to come.
I think it's important to recognize that the cost of living has been a challenge for many, many Canadians over the past year, over the past years. We also know that the pandemic was extremely difficult, and it was the federal public service that stepped up in heroic ways, whether it was delivering the CERB, whether it was delivering support to small businesses, whether it was delivering the public health supports. that were there to help the provinces. A lot of people work very, very hard through difficult situations. There's good news that inflation is coming down. All the experts predict that it'll be down to much more manageable levels by this summer. But at the same time, we recognize that we need to make sure that we're properly supporting those who work in our public service. That's why conversations have been ongoing at the bargaining table for weeks now. There have been constructive advances and offers, and we're very hopeful that we're going to be able to resolve this. But it's at the bargaining table that these things happen, and we will continue to be there in good faith and work on trying to resolve this for all Canadians.
Thank you. Next question.
Hi, my question is actually for Mr. Ekholm first.
Of course.
David Reevely from The Logic. Mr. Trudeau and Mr. Champagne said that you don't get Ericsson to Canada with money, but you said it's a little bit about the money. Can you explain what the gap is that the money is filling between what Canada can offer without the money and what the money gets here?
We're still negotiating, so that's why I need to keep them at the table, right? No, but it's not about the money to make the decision to be in Canada. That is genuinely true. It's about the talent base, because if we don't have the talent base, we're not going to have a long term. And we're not going to make a commitment that's going to last 10, 20, 30, 70 years based on something you get at the outset. Instead, you base it on the fundamental factors of the country. And that's why talent matters the most. Culture matters, actually plays a big role. And it plays a big role the way you can cooperate with the government. That's really what matters. And that's why we make the commitment now to Canada to actually invest in Canada, because we believe in the future of the country, right? And everybody always wants to get down to, but there is a dollar somewhere. You know, it's I often say, don't read too much between the lines. There is nothing there. And that applies here as well. It's really what's been done to, and I think this is a long-term commitment Canada has as well to education, to actually creating the ecosystems, to opening up the country for immigration. And you will see, we have a lot of people coming globally, wanting to come to Canada as well. That's why this is a great site for us.
My follow-up is for whichever of the politicians wants to take it. While you've been speaking, I got a statement from the Council of Canadian Innovators, and they say that subsidizing a large foreign corporation is exactly the wrong mindset for achieving meaningful growth in the innovation economy. They want action on keeping IP made in Canada and supporting smaller innovators. Why is this right, and the people who are supporting the scale-ups and startups wrong?
I actually don't think it's a choice. I think we have to show that we are both investing in Canadian innovators and support for extraordinary small startups that are creating great solutions, and we have to invest in the ecosystem. You asked about the money we're putting forward as a federal government. There is no country in the world that would have offered 2 or 3 times as much as our final number will be to get the kind of R&D investment over the long term that Ericsson is making in Canada right now. Their decision is not about, well, who's going to give me the best money, the best amount of money and amount of corporate subsidies in order to come here. But they do want to know that we are committed. We are committed to this community, that we're committed to the workers in Kanata, Carleton, and indeed across the country, that we're willing to put some skin in the game, and that's why there will be money on the table from Canada, because quite frankly, confident countries invest in themselves, invest in their workers, invest in their future, and that's what we're doing. But if we want to have those great innovative startups succeed, if we want to create those opportunities for Canada to continue to lead in the world, we have to both be working with global leaders like Ericsson, who are delivering to the world, We also have to have Ericsson train up all these folks who at one point, maybe a few years from now, will spin off and create their own startup with all the great training and learning they have. No proprietary information, of course, but we are creating an ecosystem here in Kanata and right across the country where people come out of university or research institutions, get that practical, world-leading expertise and stay and continue to build this global company with a larger footprint in Canada, or choose to move on in a decade or so to start up their own entrepreneurship. That's the ecosystem that we're building in Canada. So anyone who says that it's either or doesn't understand the role and even the responsibility that Canadians can play in the creation of solutions that the world desperately needs.
Bonjour, M. Trudeau, Louis Blouin de Radio-Canada.
To eliminate the climate of suspicion around the Pierre Elliott Trudeau Foundation, will your brother Alexander, or should he withdraw from his role in the foundation? And should the foundation have a name change to avoid this type of turbulence in the future? What do you think of those ideas? First of all, it's been 10 years since I've had any direct involvement with the foundation. That is a question for my brother and for the Trudeau Foundation. There are extraordinary people at that foundation reflecting on how the important work can continue to be done by the foundation that bears my father's name. As it comes to my role, I have none. What about a list of foreign interference? And people who oppose it and say it may stigmatize certain communities. What do you think about that, and are you considering that idea? When I mentioned that we would be moving forward on a register to counter foreign interference, at that press conference I did highlight that we know that identifying people and creating a registry of people in Canada based on their ethnic origin does carry with it risks. And we've had unfortunate situations in the past, whether it's the imprisonment of Italians or Japanese during the World Wars. And these are things that we must not forget. Therefore, yes, we will move forward with tools to protect our institutions, to protect our politicians, our business people, and we will protect them from foreign interference, negative foreign interference. But at the same time, we are consulting communities directly across the country and communities that may be vulnerable to these registries, so we do not repeat the errors of the past. And what our MP is doing to highlight these concerns are not just concerns of one given community, but concerns that we share as a government. That's why we are taking very seriously our responsibility to consult all communities across Canada and find the right balance to have a tool to protect ourselves, but without endangering people who we know are more often the targets of foreign interference.
As I've said many times, it's been 10 years now that I've had no direct or indirect involvement with the Trudeau Foundation. There are many reflections that they are having right now, I'm sure, about how to move forward in the right way to continue the important work done at the Pierre Elliott Trudeau Foundation, but they are not questions for me. In regards to the Foreign Influence Registry, when I announced that we were going to be moving forward on this, I highlighted that Canada has had difficult historical experiences that we need to learn from when it comes to creating foreign agent registries or registries of foreigners in Canada. One has to only think of the internment of Japanese citizens or Japanese Canadians or Italian Canadians during the past world wars, to know that we must be very, very careful with these things. So yes, we are very much looking at how to give ourselves more tools, including a registry, to protect Canadians, our institutions, our businesses from foreign interference. But we have to make sure it's done in a way that doesn't further vulnerabilize or target communities that are already primarily and the first targets of foreign influence. The Chinese Canadian community, for example, is always the first target of Chinese interference, whether it's the example of the police stations or misinformation and disinformation through various propaganda tools or other types of pressure. That's where the work that we're doing to consult with Canadians and make sure that as we move forward with more tools to keep us safer from interference, we are not adding to the pressures and the unacceptable challenges already faced by diaspora communities.
Thank you. Next question. Prime Minister Tom Parry, CBC. Your government has decided to restore Hockey Canada's federal funding with conditions. I'm wondering why you didn't make one of those conditions, requiring Hockey Canada to stop using non-disclosure agreements that silence victims in cases of sexual assault and abuse.
I will defer to the minister on answering specific questions about the conditions, because I look at it as a parent. I have a son who was in hockey for a number of years, another who may well go into it, a daughter who I'm still trying to get to do more sports, and the need as parents to be confident that the institutions that are consuming so much of our kids' times and efforts and so much learning and so much that they get to acquire through institutions like and activities like playing hockey, we need to know that they're safe. We need to know that the mentality has changed, that the culture is being addressed. We put extremely clear expectations before Hockey Canada, before we would restore funding to them. They have indicated a real willingness to move forward on that, but we are going to continue to be extremely vigilant around ensuring that they continue to be worthy of the trust that millions of Canadians put in them as we encourage our kids to play sports, and specifically hockey.
On a different topic, the Conference of Defense Associations has issued a report, well, it's a letter from more than 50 ambassadors, former defense ministers, calling for Canada to increase defense spending, speed up defense spending, and really speed up procurement. I'm wondering what you think about this letter. Do you think they're being alarmist? Do you think they make some good points? And also, you've been in power for almost 8 years. Why does it still take so long for Canada to do any kind of military procurement?
Well, I'll take the example of the fighter jet procurement challenge. The previous government decided to cut all sorts of corners and make a predetermination on what they wanted to buy in terms of fighter jets. And we promised that we would put forward a proper process. If the previous government had actually embarked upon a proper, rigorous, nonpartisan, independent process, we would have been able to procure those 88 fighter jets much earlier in our government's tenure than just last year. So there are lessons there about doing things the right way to accelerate them. But in terms of process, in terms of investments, I can highlight whether it's from NORAD modernization that we announced historic amounts for over the past year, whether it's for the procurement of those 88 new fighter jets, whether it's on stepping up in Latvia, being engaged in significant ways around the world. Canada will continue to do its share and be there, because the world is changing and it's getting more challenging in many ways, and the countries and the allies who want to see more and more of Canada are continuing to step up, as are we.
So are the people behind this letter, are they being alarmist then?
I think it is really important for people in various industries to advocate for their sectors and industries. As everyone knows, governments are challenged with a whole bunch of different priorities that we have to invest in and get the balance right on. We will continue to step up on military spending as we have and as we have demonstrated. But we're also going to be continuing to move forward and drawing in great investments to grow the economy. We're also going to be moving forward on things like childcare, which is down at $10 a day in 6 provinces and territories across the country already and will continue to be there. We're going to continue to move forward on providing dental care for Canadians who don't have insurance and can't afford it. We're going to continue to step up on fighting climate change and growing the economy. We're going to continue to step up on critical minerals and make sure that there are great jobs in the natural resources sector and in the transformation sector to continue to support the kinds of growing economy and research and innovations that's happening in the knowledge economy built on top of those. To govern is to choose, and the choices we're making are consistently about building the very best future for Canadians in every way, and that includes keeping people safe.
Thank you. Next question.
Okay. Au niveau de la défense, ça fait des années qu'on fait des investissements.
We've been making investments for many years.
Pour s'assurer la protection des
This is
Canadiens et
to
l'équipement
protect
pour les forces armées
Canadians
canadiennes.
and ensure there's equipment for the Canadian forces.
Que la proportion des investissements en
The
défense
proportion of investment under the Conservatives fell below 1% of our GDP.
Nous avons fait des investissements pour moderniser
We've made investments to modernize NORAD. We've made investments also to buy 48 new fighter jets.
Nous allons continuer d'être là pour s'assurer.
We will continue to be there to ensure that the equipment and resources are there that our forces and our allies need, and our partners across the world need Canada. We will also continue to be responsible in the choices that we are making to build a stronger and safer future for all Canadians.
Kevin Gallagher, CTV National News. Prime Minister, with a potential public sector workers' strike looming on Wednesday for more than 150,000 workers, would you consider back-to-work legislation?
First of all, Kevin, on Friday, the questions people were asking me was, well, with a looming public service strike on Monday, are you worried about this? Now it's potentially Wednesday. Look, we're going to stay focused at the bargaining table. We're going to stay focused on putting forward reasonable, responsible offers to try and make sure that we're both recognizing and continuing to recognize the extraordinary work done by public servants, federal public servants across this country, while at the same time being responsible about the taxpayer investments and taxpayer funds that go to pay their salaries. Getting that balance right is something that we all want, but that happens not in negotiating in public. It happens when we sit down and roll up our sleeves at the bargaining table, as both sides are doing in good faith. Évidemment, je vais pas négocier sur la place publique.
Obviously, I will not be negotiating in the public forum, but I can say that around the bargaining table, we are working responsibly and openly. We recognize the challenges and the work being done by our federal public servants. But we are also trying to ensure that we are responsible to taxpayers, because we need to do so in negotiating future contracts. We are acting responsibly and will continue to do so.
We learned Friday, just before your chief of staff testified at committee, that you have been briefed on foreign interference 6 times since 2018. I realize that there are national security and intelligence things that you can't go into, as we learned from Katie Telford's testimony. However, we don't quite know what you're being briefed on in terms of, was it specifically Chinese interference? So could you perhaps elaborate if you were specifically being briefed on Chinese interference during those 6 formal briefings from 2018?
It shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone that I regularly get fully briefed on a range of threats and concerns and matters of interest that come from our security agencies and intelligence community. One of the fundamental jobs of any prime minister, of any government, is keeping its citizens safe. So I am fully apprised by my national security agencies of what their concerns are, what the issues are that I need to know about. And I can assure you that whenever and wherever it is appropriate, I always take action. But of course, when it comes to national security, we are extremely limited in what governments can say publicly, because talking about national security operations or even information can sometimes directly put at risk the people who are out there collecting that information and working to keep Canadians safe. And that's always been one of the challenges that has existed in democracies around the need to keep people safe in an open society and also have them reassured that we're following all the rules, that we're doing everything necessary to do that. And that's why most democracies work around that problem by creating a committee of parliamentarians of one way or another, of all different parties, who are fully briefed up, fully cleared to look into everything our security agencies do. But Canada, particularly under the previous Conservative government, refused to do that. They refused to bring in multi-party oversight over our national security agencies. Well, that was a commitment we made in 2015 that we would fix, and we brought in the National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians so Canadians can know that our security institutions, and indeed our government, is being held to account by parliamentarians from all parties who get to see everything that is happening within our national security spheres. Now, for reasons that the Conservative Party will have to explain to you, they have not only resisted bringing in that oversight committee until 2015, but they continue to seek to politicize and undermine the work that it does, even though there are outstanding members of the Conservative Party who are there on that committee doing good work. Every open democracy will face the challenge of knowing, okay, there are some things we can't talk about publicly because it'll put our national security at risk, but Canadians need to know that we're doing it right, that we're being responsible, that we're doing everything necessary to keep them safe. And bringing in political parties of all different stripes, members of those political parties, to be able to look into it is one of the ways that if a report, as comes out regularly from NSICOP, this committee, says this is being done right, this area needs improvement, these are things that Canadians can be reassured about, this is something that needs to be tightened up, Canadians can know that we've found that way of both holding national security concerns appropriately and ensuring that we are being accountable as a government and as agencies for the work that we're doing.
Thank you. Next question.
Good morning, Prime Minister. Laura Osman, the Canadian Press. I want to pick up on your previous answer and ask if it's possible a public inquiry could put some of those questions to rest, given that your Chief of Staff testified many times that she can't discuss specifics she learned at the national security briefings.
That is exactly the task that we have put towards the Special Rapporteur, David Johnston, who will be looking at how the best way is to share with Canadians what is going on, what has been happened, how to make sure that we're doing everything necessary to counter foreign interference. This is exactly the question that that this independent expert will be looking at.
Final question.
I also want to ask you if you would commit to having a foreign agent registry in place before the next election.
As we heard, we need to take on a range of tools, constantly improve our toolbox in terms of how we're protecting Canadians from foreign interference. At the same time, we need to make sure we're doing it in a way that doesn't further vulnerabilize, I don't even know if that's a word, but I'm going to keep using it. At the same time, we need to make sure we don't do things that further make vulnerable diaspora Canadians, communities that are always the first targets of foreign interference, specifically Iranian Canadians, Chinese Canadians, among others. That's why we are taking the time to consult appropriately on the foreign agent registry and making sure that we're using it in the right ways.
Thank you.